Now, I've been using FlutterFlow for more than 2 years, building all kinds of apps, everything from very simple to very complex, making tons and tons of videos. And after experimenting with a bunch of other no-code tools, I definitely feel that FlutterFlow is the best no-code tool right now, whether you are somewhat beginner or someone with some experience under their belt. Now, a lot of people ask me, why do I feel this way? Well, I feel this way because FlutterFlow comes with a ton of awesome features that make app development very, very easy and straightforward. Now, in today's video, I want to share with you my 9 favorite FlutterFlow features that I look forward to every time I start building a new app. And then a little bit later in the video, I'm going to share with you a bonus feature, which is also an amazing feature that makes app development very, very easy and straightforward. Now, before we get started, as always, all the apps and all the resources that I discuss on this channel can be viewed and or cloned via our amazing Patreon community. And if you're still not a member of our incredible, rapidly growing Patreon community, then you can learn more about it and hopefully become a member via the first link in the description below the video. Now, here I am inside of FlutterFlow, and I built a sample proof of concept app that demonstrates my favorite FlutterFlow features. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run this app and I'm gonna start showing you the features that I really love. All right, so here's the app here. And the first feature that I truly love is state management. Now, with FlutterFlow, you have access to all kinds of different states. You have application state, you have page state, you also have component state. And not only that, but state itself is very, very powerful. So in this very simple example, what you see here is a state variable currently initialized at 0. And we have some buttons that if we interact with these buttons, our state is going to be not only automatically updated, but this whole page will be automatically rebuilt. So if I press this button, you can see that we're updating our state, but we're also rebuilding the page. And if I press this button, we are also updating our state and automatically rebuilding the page. Now, granted, this is a very simple example, but state itself is extremely powerful. And you can build amazing apps by leveraging this amazing functionality. And so if you want to learn more about state, definitely check out that video right there. Now, the second feature that I want to share with you guys that makes development super easy and straightforward is data types. Okay, so here I have a button that attempts to connect to a third-party server and execute an API call. And once we get this data, instead of getting it in a raw format, we are actually going to be creating a custom data type and putting this data inside of this custom data type. So if I execute this, we get a custom data type with these fields, but we are not treating these fields all by themselves. These are all part of the custom data type. So if we go back to our app here and we click here, you can see that all of this here is part of this record here. And that is because I have this custom data type called a record type that contains these fields. And so if we go ahead and execute this API call right here, we get this raw data here. And because I have this setting turned on, we're actually getting this data and creating a record type and putting these fields there. And this makes it super easy and super straightforward to work with that data as a whole, as a complete variable, instead of working with the individual fields that we receive from a third-party call or from wherever else. My next favorite feature is a feature that FlutterFlow released just recently, just a week or two ago. And this is a debug panel. And this is a universal feature that makes app development so easy, straightforward, and actually adds a little bit of a fun element to it. Okay, so here I have a page with lots of random widgets, okay? And these widgets, they have values, right? So a user is going to be interacting with these widgets But in the backend, these widgets are going to be storing values, right? So if I drag this slider here, you're going to be seeing that we have the slider value, and this is the current value, right? Although the user doesn't see it, we know because we have this debug panel here, right? Same thing for this. So I have these 3 checkboxes, and if I check them, you can see that now it's telling me that option 1 and option 2 is checked. And if I check option 3, we're going to be seeing option 3. And if I deselect them, we're not going to be seeing any of them. And same thing for these ones here. If I select option 1, you can see that drop down value 1, which is this drop down, is set to option 1. And if I do the same thing to this one, you can see that drop down value 2 is set to this one. And same thing for pretty much all the widgets that the users are going to be interacting with, because at the end of the day, the purpose of creating these widgets is to allow the user to enter just the right value that's important for your app, that's corresponding with a specific feature. And so with this counter here, if I increment it, you can see that it's actually containing the value. And same thing for this label here, and especially with these labels, it just makes it super easy to find out what's going on at pretty much any time of your development. So regardless whether you're just starting out, you're in the middle, you're almost finished, or maybe you're debugging before you launch, you can quickly refer to this debug panel and see exactly what's happening. Now, if you want to learn more about this debug panel, definitely check out that video right there. My next favorite feature that I want to share with you is custom authentication. Okay, so as an example, we are currently logged into this app, okay, even though you may not have realized it. So if I log out, we're going to be seeing this login screen. Now, we have this authentication set, but it's not currently connected to Firebase. It's not connected to Supabase. It's not connected to Pocketbase. It's custom authentication because we have connected it as a part of a third-party API call. And so if I go ahead and I signed in as this user right here, and actually take a look at this password field. Yeah, we can click here, but we don't need to do that because we're seeing this password text in this debug panel. So if I enter, this email and this password, and I hit sign in, we are successfully logged in. So we can click OK, and we can go back here and we can log out again. So how does this work? Well, this is the beauty of FlutterFlow because they made it super easy and super seamless. So what you really need to do is when a user logs in, so if I come back to this login page here, if I click sign in, it's really up to me as the developer in terms of how I want to set up my authentication, okay? And really, in lots of cases, you're going to be creating a backend API call, right? You may want to connect to some third-party server, send the user's credentials, and see what the third-party server says, whether the credentials are correct or they're incorrect. So what we have here is we have an API call called authenticate that connects to this dummy JSON auth login, which is a dummy, kind of this JSON server that you can use for testing, and you have various accounts. And so if I pass this account information and I say test API call, I get the data. But if I change something here and I do test API call, I get a 400 failure, right? Invalid credentials. Now, after we execute this API call on behalf of the user as part of the login process, we need to manually log in the user, okay? So as you can see, we execute this API call, we are successful because we're not getting that 400 error, which would be the case if we are not entering the credentials correctly. We need to manually log in the user. And at this point, we can let FlutterFlow know all the information that we may need throughout the app. So things like a token, a refresh token, token expiration, user UID. You can also, create a custom user by selecting this, and you can create a user record and just, enter all the fields that you may need. And once you do that, you're going to have this user that's set, that's available throughout your app. And so once you're done, you can simply log the user out as we're doing here. So this log out here, we simply have an action that does a log out. Now, before you do any of that, you need to make sure that you go to App Settings Authentication and select Custom Authentication. And that would allow you to do it your way, exactly how you need it for your app when you are interacting with some third-party service. The next awesome feature that I want to share with you is a feature that I've actually been waiting for quite a while until FlutterFlow read our minds and actually implemented it, allowing us a lot more power and functionality. So this is a list, but this is not a built-in FlutterFlow list. This is actually a custom widget that I created with ChatGPT that basically lists random things. In this case, these are basically food items, so things like pizza, burger, taco, ice cream, etc., etc. Now, what's cool about this feature is that even though this is a custom widget, we have interaction with our app. So if I do something in this custom widget, this custom widget can notify our app and send various arguments or parameters, giving us more information as to what happened. So if I click on any of the items, you're going to be seeing that we click taco, or we click sushi, or we click pasta, burger. And so this is a custom widget, while this is FlutterFlow itself. Now, how exactly this is done? Well, if we jump back over here, you can see that I have a custom list. All of this was created with ChatGPT. Okay, this was I didn't even mess with this. This was all created with ChatGPT. I basically told it, create me a list with some random items, but make sure that you create a callback that gets executed anytime the user clicks on any of the items, and also make sure that you tell me what the user clicked on. Okay, and as a result, I have this thing here. It has this gesture detector, which is another way of saying that, it detects events. It detects events when the user does something to it. And we basically execute this on item clicked, which is this function here. And this is actually part of custom widgets, right? We have this on item clicked that we execute. Now, previously, you can only create one of these on item click, right? So once you had one, if you click on add parameters, you won't be able to select action, right? You wouldn't be able to select action in the past because you already had one. And what FlutterFlow did is it allowed us to create unlimited of these actions, right? And this is really, really awesome because now you can create all kinds of events. And this is something that I did in one of my previous videos when I talked about super widgets that connect back to your app. And not only that, but now you can also add parameters, right? So if I go ahead and create another action, I can add action parameters, which wasn't the case previously, okay? So even though we can create these callbacks and let the app know, we could not pass additional information, okay? So in our case here, we could have let the app know that, the user clicked on something, but we couldn't let the app know more information. We couldn't let the app know on what exactly the user clicked on because this, parameters, these action parameters feature was not available. Okay, so now we have the best of both worlds. We can create multiple of these action callbacks, and we can also create multiple of these parameters. And that means we have unlimited ways of connecting back to our app. And so if you've seen any of my previous videos, especially some of the recent ones, you know that I'm very, very passionate about this feature because it opens up a ton of new possibilities and it opens up a ton of things that we can do when it comes to creating easy to use apps for our users. Now, my next favorite feature is more of a feature that has to do with Flutter instead of FlutterFlow. But because FlutterFlow uses Flutter under the hood, right? Everything is basically Flutter when you're developing FlutterFlow apps. This is a feature that you're going to be dealing all the time. And this is a layout structure. Now, there's lots and lots of no-code tools there. There's lots and lots of ways to build apps, build web pages. And all of them have a particular layout structure. And in my opinion, the way that Flutter does it and FlutterFlow does it is really the easiest, the most straightforward, and really the one that makes the most sense. It's just super intuitive and makes it super easy to get started. So if we jump back to our app over here and we take a look at the screen here, you can see that I have a sample layout. Now, this layout is a row with 3 elements. Okay, so we have, this text 1, text 2, and then we have an input element. And this layout here is a column. And what is the difference? Well, the difference is that in a row, the elements are aligned horizontally, whereas in a column, they are aligned vertically. But that's just the beginning, because when it comes to actually aligning these elements, you have complete control to tell FlutterFlow how much space, if any, that element should take. Should it take little space? Should it be visible? Or should it take like the most space it can, right? So if you take a look at this row right here, we have text and text, but I want to make sure that this last element takes up the rest of the space. I don't want it to take like a third of the space. I want it to take up, the rest of the space. And that is why I have this expansion set on this last one, whereas on these two here, I have this setting here set. And same thing here, right? We have 2 images, and I want this image to take the rest of the space, right? So I have 2 images here. This one has this default setting, and then this one has this main setting. And so what I can do is I can change how much space this image takes up. And so if I make it smaller, there's going to be more space to take up for the other widgets, right? Which means that this widget here is going to eat up the rest of the space. And in some situations, this is exactly what I want. In other situations, this may not be what I want. So as an example, let's say I decrease the height. Let's say I make it 100. You can see that now it's a little, shorter, right? It's a little narrower, but this one extends automatically. Now, if I do something like this, this is going to be a default setting, right? Which is 300 by 200. But if I do this, it has this expansion, right? This greedy expansion here. And you also have this setting here, which is flexible here. And the purpose of that setting is to take up the space if it needs to take up space. And if it doesn't, it's not going to take up space, where this is greedy. Now, what I've just talked about is merely scratching the surface, right? There's so many things that we can do, so many ways that we can align our elements. But most importantly, it's very, very intuitive, right? And you never feel that there is a better way of doing it. Something that I felt when I was using all of these other tools. With FlutterFlow, I feel that I am in complete control. I know exactly what I need to do. And I know that, my app is going to look good regardless, what device the user may be, using this app on, whether mobile, tablet, or even desktop, right? This is how comfortable I feel with this layout structure. My next favorite feature is a feature that FlutterFlow introduced fairly recently, and this is a feature that I've been waiting for a very, very long time, because this is a feature that's super important when it comes to building all kinds of apps. I will even go as far as to say that there are some apps that you cannot build if you do not leverage this feature, and this is drag and drop. And so in this little demo, we have 2 lists. The first list has a list of countries, and the second list has a list of capitals for these countries. At least that's what I think it should have. Now, what we have here is we have draggable functionality, which means there are certain widgets that you can drag to certain places. So in this case, these widgets are draggable and they can be dragged anywhere here, right? So if I go ahead and let's say I pick Lisbon, and as you can see, I can drag it, and you're seeing that behavior. Now, I can't just drag it anywhere, right? There are certain places that I can drag it, and there are certain places that I can't drag it. As the case is here, I can drag it on top of countries, right? So if I go ahead and drag it here, I can see item drag Lisbon, right? Because not only were we able to drag it, but we were also able to drop it somewhere. And our app knows exactly what was the widget that we were just dragging, right? So if I go ahead and drag London, put it right here, it says item drag London, okay? If I go ahead and drag Madrid, and I drag it right here, it says item drag Madrid, right? So this drag and drop functionality is super important. It's super crucial when it comes to building all kinds of apps, right? Whether consumer apps, business apps, or any kind of app in between, because in this day and age, people want to see interaction, right? People want to see, this drag and drop functionality. They want to see this magic happening on the screen. And so this is something that you definitely want to be leveraging in your apps if it makes sense. Now, my next favorite feature is a feature that I use all the time, and it saves me a ton of time because it's automatically built in. I don't need to go out and code it manually. I don't need to create custom widgets or anything like that. And this is list management. Okay, so in this page here on the screen, you're seeing a list of continents here, right? Now, this list of continents is not sorted in any specific order, right? So it's not sorted A to Z. It's not sorted Z to A. It's not sorted in ascending or descending order, but we can easily fix that, right? We can go simply back to our FlutterFlow UI builder, select the page, select the list view, and we can come over here and we can see that we're feeding a page state variable here. So if you click over here, you can see that we're simply feeding this page state variable, and I have this no further changes selected. Now I can easily click here, and I have lots and lots of options that I can do, right? I can map list items, which means that I can select something specific from a general item. I can filter list items, which means I can find specific items. I can just, get the first few items. I can sort list items. I can get unique list items, or I can just leave it as is, right? So for this example, let's say I want to sort these items. Well, I can just click on sort list items. I can find my sort key, which is the item itself, click confirm, make sure you click on save because it does not save automatically, and then go ahead and reload, or in this case, start a new session to see our changes. All right, so here's our app, and this is our list. And in this case, you can see that now it's sorted alphabetically, right? It's sorted from A to Z with the A's up on top, and the other letters closer to Z are on the bottom. And this took us just a couple of clicks to do. And obviously I can come back to my app here and I can do more things, right? So maybe instead of sorting, I just want to display unique items. I want to display just the first few items, or I want to filter. Maybe I just want to filter, items if they start with the letter A or they start with another letter, or maybe they're a certain length. And we can also map list items. And this is something that I do all the time, especially when you're using a custom data type, right? Remember, a custom data type is a data type, which is a variable that has lots and lots of other simpler variables inside, right? So with this map list items, I can tell it, hey, I want you to find that specific, item, that specific, sub variable, and only display that, instead of working with the main complex variable. And if you've seen my previous videos, you probably noticed that I do this all the time. And so what's nice about this feature is that it's automatically built in, right? You don't need to do any custom logic. You don't need to do any custom coding. It's automatically built in. And I feel that a lot of people are not really using this feature to its full potential, but it is here. And so you should definitely start using it if it makes sense for your app. My next favorite feature is a feature that FlutterFlow implemented also fairly recently. This is not a feature that was there all the way back when I started with FlutterFlow, but this is a feature that simplifies your life considerably, and this is the code expression functionality, right? So if you go back to our app over here, you can see that I have a similar list as before. We have these continent names that we're printing, but in addition, we also have a code expression that displays the number of characters in the actual name of the continent, right? So with Asia, we have 4 characters. With Europe, we have 6 characters, Australia 9, etc., etc. Now, how is this done? Well, this is also fairly easy because once we have the list, we have access to that main element that's being displayed in the list, that's being cycled over on, right? Essentially, which is the name of the continent that we're displaying, right? It's not the same name, it's a different name each time. And so what we have here is we have a code expression on the same row, right? Remember the layout. And if you come over here, you can see that we have this code expression. Now, what exactly is a code expression? Well, a code expression is basically a one-line function, okay? So FlutterFlow has custom functions that you can use instead of code expressions. But if you have something very, very simple, that will, you'll only need like a one line, and trust me, you'll be surprised, but in my experience, the majority of the things that I do when it comes to kind of building these apps, they're just one-liners, right? Lots and lots of these use cases are just one-liners. Yes, sometimes you need a little bit more, right? It needs to be a little bit more complex, but lots of times a one-liner accomplishes what you're trying to do beautifully. And so the first thing you need to do is you need to define your variable, right? So I have this item, which is a string, and then I come back here and I give it a value, right? So this variable needs to mean something, right? So I come back over here and I can select this continent item, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it right here. And then what I need to do is I need to create an expression. And what exactly is an expression? Well, the purpose of an expression is to take your value and transform it into something else, right? Because if we just take the variable, the value, right, we don't need a code expression, right? We can just print the value as is. But with a code expression, we can do something unique if it's going to take just one line to do, right? So in this case, I'm just displaying the length, right? So I have this thing marked as item, and I basically say item.length. And that's going to give me the number of characters in that string, okay? And so I say confirm. And now, instead of just displaying that item, we take that item and we get the length of characters, and that is exactly what we are outputting. Now, like I said before, we also have custom functions that you can create, which are accessible right here in this custom code menu. But if you're just looking to do something simple, that's going to be very, very quick and easy, creating a custom function is going to be an overkill. A code expression is a lot better, and that is something that I do all the time. This is a feature that I use in all kinds of apps, regardless whether they're super simple or very complex production-ready apps. It just makes things a lot easier. And so I'm really glad that this feature exists. And last but not least, another feature that I really, really like a lot, that's going to streamline your development, that's going to help you kind of hit the ground running, is the ability to import a ready design into your app and get the color scheme. And so if you can simply go over here and search for Figma, you're going to be on the screen right here that you can access with these theme settings, design system. And here you can click on import Figma theme, right? And all you need to do is enter your Figma file URL and the personal access token. And that's going to go ahead and import color styles and text styles for you from Figma, right? And so let's say I go into my Figma account, and let's say I've been working on this design right here. And if I open this up, and I really like this style, I really like this theme, I like the colors, I like, the layout, I really like how it looks. And all I need to do is copy the URL, get an access token that you can learn more about in this documentation right here. Click here, paste it in, and that's going to go ahead and give you the color scheme that you can use in your app. And so I know a lot of people use Figma for designs. This is kind of the industry standard. And so if you're somebody that uses Figma by yourself or maybe as part of a team, then you're going to find this feature super, super helpful. And so if you guys want to see me cover this feature in some of the future videos, definitely let me know in the comments below. Now, this app that I built here showcases lots of different functionality, lots of different features. And even though each example is fairly rudimentary, it's going to give you an idea of how to take it and implement it in your specific app use case. And the best way to kind of leverage these features that I talked about, maybe you have some features that you like as well, or maybe that you agree with me that these features are really, really awesome. then what you need to do is you need to be able to get access to this app, so that way you can learn exactly how I implemented, custom authentication or drag and drop or some of these other features here. And you can do just that when you join our incredible Patreon community. Because when you join our amazing, rapidly growing Patreon community, you're not only going to get access to this app, which means that you can view it, you can clone it, you can do pretty much anything that you want. You're going to get access to all my other apps that I talked about on this channel. And there are tons and tons of apps. I think there's more than 160 or 170 apps by now that are in all kinds of difficulty levels, from very, very simple to a lot more complex. But not only that, you're also going to get access to extra content such as our Q&A sessions and our Patreon supported masterclass, where we essentially do a poll, decide what the community wants to learn more about, and I go ahead and create a comprehensive video that walks our community members through a specific concept, a tool, or an app in a much more in-depth fashion than I ever talk about on this channel. And so if you guys want to go to the next level, take your no-code knowledge more, learn about something deeper, something that you're not really understanding, maybe you're missing some concepts, then you definitely are going to get a lot of value from our Patreon supported masterclass series. And that's not all. You're going to join an amazing community with some amazing people that are super passionate about perfecting their no code, about building the very best apps that they can build. And together you can learn how to be better and improve your no code game. But above and beyond that, when you join our amazing Patreon community, you're going to be supporting this channel and supporting my work. And that is greatly, greatly appreciated, because at the end of the day, you guys are the reason why I create these videos. And so if my videos add some value to your no-code journey, if you learned something that you didn't learn before, if you had maybe an aha moment, you picked something up, or you surpassed a barrier, maybe you've added a new feature on an app that you're building, or you got more ideas on a future app, then I've done my job. And if that's the case, you're going to get a ton more value as a member of our incredible Patreon community. And so if any of that sounds like something that might interest you, then definitely check it out and become a member. And you can do just that by clicking the first link in the description below the video.